Hello and welcome to the third unit of our third week in the course. Avoid SAP S/4HANA project delays with third-party system service virtualization. My name is Michał Ronka, and in this unit I will present how INT4 Suite can be integrated with UI testing tools. You will learn how INT4 Suite automated API tests can add additional dimension to the established UI testing automation. My colleagues were focusing in previous weeks on SAP tailored service virtualization benefits for all kinds of SAP-related projects, but they just shown a part of INT4 Suite capabilities. With INT4 Suite, organization can grow and benefit even more from the automation of API tests in connection with UI testing automation. I would like to introduce 4 steps that organization can follow to take a journey from SVT support of manual tests to full-blown end-to-end automated testing. First step, we already know. Sarah, as a senior IT manager, already proven that this can be implemented and used with the great success. Next step is to use SVT to support UI testing. For example, SVT can be replying to the purchase order outbound message with inbound delivery message. That will virtualize a third-party vendor system. Thanks to that, SVT can be used to help UI testing tools to test scenarios that are API related. UI testing tools can act as if they are in a fully connected environment with all the external systems connection in place. INT4 Messenger acts in the background in such a case, with no need for a UI testing tool to call it. Next step in enhancing test automation should be migration of INT4 Messenger virtualization content into INT4 API tester test cases. INT4 Suite can reuse messages already collected for the virtualization purpose and change them into fully functional API tests. Thanks to that, the library of already collected messages by Sarah's team can be reused without the need to recollect test examples one more time. In the next lesson, I will show in detail how to achieve that. In the modern landscape, which is connected with multiple third-party systems, most of the processes consist of manual and API actions. So the last step will be to combine UI testing with API testing into fully automated end-to-end testing scenarios. That will cover real-life processes, and it's the only way to run the true end-to-end regression test that business can rely on. Okay, so we know what the journey in front of the Sarah's team is. If they would like to work with the fully automated regression tests for end-to-end processes, they need to follow those steps and choose the right approach on the UI testing tools integration with INT4 API Tester. There are 3 ways INT4 API Tester can interact with UI testing tools. INT4 API Tester can run scripts that are accessible from SAP Solution Manager Test Suite. That includes TTA, CBTA, and ECAT. In such a scenario, API Tester acts as the central testing application that is controlling end-to-end tests. INT4 API Tester can support Selenium in this mode too. That's approach 1. As I've already mentioned in week 3, unit 1, INT4 Suite is very open with its APIs. This can be leveraged not only by the bot developers but also by UI testing tools. REST and SOAP APIs provide possibilities to trigger test cases, collect results, and populate test cases variables. Thanks to that, UI testing tool can exchange data and actions with API Tester. Whenever there is a need to trigger a message, check an outbound message, or run database validation on ABAP backend, UI testing tools can call an API Tester and ask for an action. Please notice that API Tester can run DB validations on documents created by UI tools too, not only API-related documents. INT4 Suite package also contains a report that is an SAP GUI wrapper for the REST API that INT4 Suite is exposing for test cases triggering. Thanks to that, test cases can be triggered as a regular ABAP report. This allows UI testing tools to record message triggering or database validations as the regular UI script. Now let's switch to the demos. I would like to present first how a simple inbound sales order test case looks like when it's migrated from INT4 Messenger to INT4 API Tester. I'm opening API Tester Cockpit, going to folder with my test case. I will select it and execute. The new window is showing up where I should find the test case results when it will be done. Test is passed. I can now go to the details of this test. I see the receiver, service information. I also see the detailed comparison of the two XMLs. Reference message that was stored by INT4 Messenger and the newly created message that's the result of a test. Now, the same test case can be called using REST API call. I will use TTA API scan for it. The endpoint is populated. It's pointing to the test runs API. Payload is populated with my test case ID. It can be many test cases, even whole scenarios. I can just run it. And I see the results. I see if my test case was successful, who ran the test case, when. What is really important, I got the URL link to the detailed report, but I also got all the details here, variables populated, for example, newly created PO number. Thanks to that information, TTA can store results of the INT4 API tester runs and continue with further UI scripts based on the data delivered by INT4 Suite REST API. Finally, let's try the last option, which is the wrapper. I'm here in the wrapper transaction. I populated my test case ID. I can execute. Most importantly, I also see the list of variables. It can be later passed to the UI testing tool to continue the process. For example, run a script that will create delivery to this sales order. I can copy the link, paste it in a browser, and I can see the test results same as when run from INT4 API Tester Cockpit. We know how to trigger API testing from INT4 API Tester. That should give us more understanding of how UI testing tools and INT4 Suite can talk with each other. With that knowledge, we can combine UI testing and API testing into one end-to-end test that will cover all the steps in the real-life process. In my demo, the tested process will be in a simple OTC scenario. It consists of several API and UI testing steps. It starts with the API test of inbound purchase order that will create a sales order in S/4HANA backend system. INT4 API Tester will send this message to middleware and compare newly created sales order document with the reference document on database level of the backend system. Next, UI test will create delivery and invoice to this sales order. After those steps, INT4 API Tester will check the database for newly created delivery and invoice, comparing them with the reference documents. What is more, the INT4 API Tester will validate if EDI outbound shipment notification and EDI outbound invoice are correctly processed by the middleware platform, including validation of the mapping and routing to the correct receivers. This will be a full end-to-end test that will prove that the whole process with all its moving parts is running correctly in the landscape. Let's go to the demo. I would like to present how OTC process can be run from external UI testing tool applications. This time, I will be using works of Certify. I created a process that will call API Tester using wrapper recording. It will also perform other UI steps based on the Certify core functionalities. API Tester wrapper will pass all the needed values and links to Certify. In the end, Certify will use URLs provided by wrapper to display API Tester results, including both database validations of documents created in a process as well as check for all inbound and outbound communication that are part of the process. I'm starting the process. I'll click Start and Run. It's worth mentioning that all the API actions are run on SAP Solution Manager and all the UI actions are run on SAP S/4HANA backend system. Now the sales order is created. Certify will continue with creation of delivery and invoice. Documents are now created. Now Certify will ask API tester to run the checks on DB validations and outbound processing. Test is completed. We can check and certify that all the data collected by API tester is here. Newly created documents, permanent links to test results. All the information about the test runs are also available here under the links. I can go into details, for example for created sales order. I see the reference document and the newly created sales order, comparison of the messages, and also detailed database validation of those documents. Same I can see for the outbound delivery. I see what receiver received this message, how the message looked like. I can go into DB validation and check if document is correctly created by UI testing script. End-to-end processes tests are usually the end goal of test automation initiatives. Those are the most complex and demanding tests, no matter if performed manually with the assistance of INT4 Messenger or fully automated with the UI testing tools. Despite this, I hope I was able to convince you that thanks to the many different possibilities of interaction between INT4 Suite and other software, all that is possible. What is more, when set up, it's easy to reuse and provide far more detailed test results than any other type of testing. Thanks for joining, and in the next lesson I will focus on how to quickly and easily make a leap from SVT run via INT4 Messenger to detailed API tests.